Hey guys, how's it going? We are on week 3, so I just have a little bit of an update for you. I'll try to keep it under 10 minutes, but there is a lot of information this week. So just some new school information. If you do need to get anything from the school, you have to make an appointment to come in. So that includes your green books. The school's completely locked for public access, so please make sure that you call an appointment, you call the school if you need anything. We're still figuring out some things on assessment. We think we kind of know what's going on. You will be assessed a percentage in June. We're still trying to determine how we'll make those things up. For those of you who missed exams or quizzes prior to the cancellation of classes, I'm going to contact you with a makeup assessment that you can complete for that mark. But I'll contact you individually for that, okay? Okay, so the Rack Your Brain for this week. So there's 3 videos I want you to watch. They're all only a couple minutes long. One on the Russian Revolution, one on what is fascism, and one on the rise of the Nazis from the History Channel. I want you to read the Chapter 7 PowerPoint that I'm going to be posting. It'll be labeled week 3 though, because I've adjusted things. And then do your textbook pages 162 to 70 and 172 to 82. We'll have another webinar on April 8th at 1 p.m. So please try to come to that. Please complete your activity books. It's the yellow one still, pages 16 to 22, and that will help you to complete the 5 techniques of dictatorship response on the Google Classroom. So that'll be posted as an assignment, and then you can hand that in, okay? And that one is being taken in for assessment, okay, at the end of the week. And then by the end of the week, you should know understandings of Stalinism and fascism, why some countries would reject liberalism, and why communism or fascism is a failure of that rejection of liberalism. So I will go through the PowerPoint and go through some key points. So there is quite a few slides. So I'll skip through some of them and I'll focus on other points. Okay, rejecting liberalism. So this is one of my favorite chapters. I love it. It goes over the rise of the Nazis and Stalin and stuff like that. So please make sure you know these key terms. They're in your activity book to fill out for vocabulary. So we've looked at how we think that liberalism should be upheld, and now we're looking at how liberalism has been rejected. So first off, looking at the Russian Revolution. So it all started on Bloody Sunday. And this was in January of 1905. The Russians, workers in Russia had marched to basically petition for basic rights like freedom of speech and press and freedom of religion and things like that. They wanted an education system. They wanted better working conditions, all reasonable requests. But they were basically just gunned down from the Tsar. And so this led to the Russian Revolution in 1917. So it took some time, but eventually gets to that point, okay? So this was a reaction to the injustices of that Tsarist system. The economy had just exploited the proletariat or the workers. And so Vladimir Lenin basically fought back against this and the communists, okay? So this is kind of a timeline. I believe it is in your book as well. Let me double check. Yep, it's on your textbook on page 165, okay? So, like I said, a lot of Russia were peasants. A lot of them were serfs, which is just low-income farmers. And there had been some changes in the past, but it was very, very slow. The government didn't enact a lot of the changes. It didn't really satisfy the Russian people. Now, Russia had gone massive change, and in 1881, the Tsar was actually assassinated, and then his son took control, and his son blamed a lot of other people for his death, and so he actually revoked a lot of those liberal reforms that had been enacted, and he basically made it a lot stricter and autocratic within the country. So his government was very inefficient. It was very authoritarian. There was a lot of food shortages. There was a secret police. And so Vladimir Lenin really appealed to the struggling workers at the time. And he basically his beliefs of allowing, freedom of speech and allowing people to have better pay and things like that. Like this is something that like the Russians had not ever had. And so it was so appealing to 80% of the population that basically wanted all of those things, okay? The reforms, like I said, weren't enough to satisfy the people. And then the First World War broke out in 1914 and Russia got involved. But then it basically just made the problems worse. There was even more food shortages. People were dying. The war was like dragging on and on and on. And so February of 1917, it developed into a revolution, and the government lost control within a few months by October of 1917. So Lenin and the Bolsheviks, the Communist Party, basically believed that this violent revolution, and I've talked about this before, it was the only way to overthrow the government. It was necessary. They had to have it. The workers had to take control. But as always, power, it's easier to take power than to stay in power. And so they had a civil war for 5 years after this. But by 1922, the Civil War was over, World War I was over, and communism was established. And so by 1924, Russia became the USSR, or the Soviet Union, which was a dictatorial rule by the Communist Party. Now, Lenin supported Marxism and supported communism, but he believed it had to be carried out differently. And so he called it war communism. And he basically believed that if we had this war communism, we would be able to redistribute the land, we would give the factories to the people, things like that. However, he realized that it couldn't happen all at once, and it was actually failing in many cases. So he introduced a new economic policy, which had some aspects of capitalism temporarily put in place to try to stimulate that economy. But the state still had control of the large industries and of banking. Now, so Lenin, they finally get power, and they finally clean everything up, and it's 1924, and then Lenin dies. He has a stroke and he dies. And so then it leads to another 4-year power struggle, and eventually Joseph Stalin takes power. And so Stalin basically continues to make Russia significantly more communist. He centralizes economic planning. He has these 5-year plans, and the whole point was to increase industrial production by 20% a year, which is a lot. It was a lot. And they also implemented collectivization. So basically, all land was taken away from private owners, and the state controlled it. And so the state controlled those farms and got to access who grew what and how much they grew and things like that. So along with collectivization came that persecution of kulaks, which was any land-owning peasants. If you did not give up your property, you were arrested or deported, or in some cases, they actually executed them, okay? This actually is what leads to the Holodomor in Ukraine, the state control of the land. And so this eventually will lead to that later on in Stalin's power. So many people became disillusioned with Stalin's leadership. And so he actually just purges basically anyone who is against him. He just kills them. They're either sent into exile or they're executed. And this is some of the highest ranking officers within the army and within the government. Almost 2 million people get arrested. And they send them to what they call gulag camps, which were in Siberia, because it's just really, really cold and no one can leave and there's no transportation. So once you're there, you're kind of stuck. And then a lot of times they would actually die within those camps because there just wasn't enough to survive on. Okay, so that's Russia, very briefly. So we'll go into Germany. So again, there is a timeline in your textbook. And I can't remember where it is. If I find the page, I'll let you know, okay? But you can see this timeline here as well. So immediately after the First World War, Germany became a republic, and the Treaty of Versailles basically forced them to sign all of these different things, and they had to be a modern, liberal, democratic structure, and they called this the Weimar Republic. Now, it really did not allow for any Germans to have any say in really anything they were doing at the time. And so they lost a lot of faith in their government. So if you recall from the Treaty of Versailles, they had to follow all these different things. They couldn't have 100,000 men or more than 100,000 men in their army. They had to reduce the Navy, no Air Force. They had to return a lot of their colonies. They lost a ton. They couldn't have a union with Austria, basically lost a lot of their national sovereignty. And they had to pay all these reparation payments. Okay. So Germany really had little choice in signing this treaty. They were forced to sign by all the other countries, and many people didn't agree with it, but Germany didn't have a choice. Okay. But unfortunately, this leads to a lot of the resentment by the German people in any liberal democratic government, because to them, it was forced upon them by the US and by England and by France, and they basically felt like, you're blaming us for all of this and now you're forcing things on us. So that really contributes to a lot of problems that happen later in Germany. As well, the economy's in ruins. And I think we've talked about this before in class, but there was massive inflation. Savings were wiped out. It was actually cheaper to burn money than it was to purchase wood or fuel for your home. Okay. So just when the economy starts to improve and they finally start getting back on their feet, the stock market crash happens in 1929, and this plunges them back into economic hardship once again. So it is not good for Germany at the time. Okay. Now, we'll kind of skip over this briefly, but for Germany, the authoritarian system actually had been quite beneficial to them in the past. Germany wasn't created as a country until 1871. That's when it was unified. And the Kaiser and the Chancellor basically had created a welfare state just within an authoritarian system. And so a lot of Germans felt like, you know what, this really wasn't that bad. So why are you forcing liberalism on us? And the Weimar Republic basically didn't give Germany anything. It didn't help bring prosperity back to the people. They were still blamed for everything. And so Hitler, when he starts to come to power, he capitalizes on this. So Hitler kind of joins the scene in the mid 1920s. He actually gets arrested for a short period of time for trying to take over the government. And it's called the Munich Putsch. And I've been to the beer house in Munich where it happened. It was pretty cool. So as the 20s and early 30s start going on and the depression is going on and people are just suffering within Germany, Hitler takes this and uses it to his advantage. So he says, like, we need to unify all of Germany and we need to make sure that those German-speaking people in Austria have us. He stifles dissent. And he centralizes all decision-making into a single leader. Now, interestingly enough, it's not Hitler to begin with. He kind of does this democratically. He slowly gets the Nazis elected in, okay? And this appealed to a lot of Germans. They had such instability, and Hitler provided like beneficial things for them. So they liked it, and they liked him. Now, with Germany, it also had theories of racial superiority. They used the Jewish people as a scapegoat. They claimed that Jews were the cause of many of Germany's problems. And this wasn't a unique thing to Germany. Anti-Semitism, or the hatred of Jews, had been going on all over the world for a long period of time. Many Christians had blamed Jews for the crucifixion of Jesus. And Germany basically takes this anti-Semitism and uses it. Okay. Now, within this, because normally we would have the opportunity to spend more time on this, but these ideologies that rejected liberalism had an impact on citizens. And so a lot of people might say, like, well, you know, Hitler did lots of good for Germany. Yes, he did. But any benefit that comes out of communism, Stalinism, fascism, Nazism, any benefit is outweighed by the devastating costs to everybody else. Okay, so killing millions of people because they don't fit with your ideology. So although some citizens do benefit, a lot of others suffered and died, which is why the rejection of liberalism can be dangerous, especially if it becomes too extreme. Okay. So communism and fascism were the two biggest influential ideologies to come out and reject liberalism. And it used totalitarianism. And so totalitarianism is that complete control of the government over the public and private lives of the citizens. So although fascism allowed for capitalism to occur, it basically was capitalism within the government's terms. And so everything you did had to still be for the state. And if your bakery wasn't still for the good of the state, then you could actually be, you could get in trouble for that and you can get arrested and things like that. So you couldn't dissent against the party still. Okay, so I've mentioned this, like if you look on the, just lost my train of thought. Okay, I've talked about how there's radicalism and reactionary. So Nazi Germany was very much a reactionary. It was a slower process. It was a move towards this like past that everybody thought was the best. Whereas in the USSR, it was meant to be like a complete rejection, and it was radical. And it involved a revolution. It was a very quick change that occurred. Okay. So this part is actually going to help you complete your assignment today. So this is in your textbook, but I also included on the Google Classroom in the assignment. So there's a whole bunch of different things that are used as techniques of dictatorships. Okay, so make sure you read over this and read this in your textbook on page 179. Then I want you to watch the videos. Like I said, there's 3. They're very short, so it shouldn't take you too long. And then you're going to complete this assignment. So after you've completed the notes, watch the videos, finish your activity books, then you complete the Google Doc labeled 5 techniques of dictatorship. So you're basically going to look at all of those techniques within your textbook and on the Google Classroom, and you need to pick 5 and then answer the questions. Okay. If you have any questions, you can email me about it. It is due on April 9th. Keep in mind that Friday is Good Friday. I'm not really taking late marks right now, so if you need a couple extra days, that's okay. Just keep in mind you need to keep on top of your work to get that grade, okay? But I understand that a lot of you are working right now as well. I've had quite a few emails from you, so I get it. We'll work together, but I still need you to complete the assignments, okay? We're going to have another webinar on April 8th on Microsoft Teams, so I'll post the invite for you on Tuesday, and I'll try to remember to record it this time. I forgot last time, okay? And have a good week. It is Holy Week, and so I put a little Easter cartoon up here for you. You can message me on Teams if you have any questions. You can please complete the work necessary because like I said, you still need to get that assessment in June. Stay home, wash your hands, stay healthy, and happy Easter. I miss you guys, and I know that the holidays for Easter this year are going to look a little different, but please just spend as much time as you can with family, and maybe you can do an Easter egg hunt or, I don't know, have a good meal. And there's all sorts of live streaming available for church masses. And just take time this weekend to just, relax, spend some time with your family. And we'll see you guys soon, okay?